What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Collective Comics, and this is number 6, the 6th episode of Lights, Comics, Action.
The podcast.
My name is Javier.
Javier.
And I am joined by the homie Jake today.
The homie Jake.
We got quite a few different things that we're kind of getting into this week. We got a shout out from your other podcast.
Yeah, shout out back to y'all.
Right.
We got Jose, Trinka, and Zach. You might remember Zach from the Black Adam episode. If you check that out, if you haven't, you should, because it's a good episode. Zach's always a good time to have around.
Yep.
But yeah, they asked us about Marvel villains, so we'll get into that. We're going to kind of see what we have left. So, if we talk about Marvel villains for an hour, then that'll be the podcast, and we'll come back next week and we'll finish off. But we have plans of ending the episode with a Marvel villains draft, just to kind of spotlight some of the Marvel villains and talk about them a little bit. But like I said, we'll kind of see how it goes. Other than that, this week, I Hate Fairyland 1 came out, y'all.
Yeah, dude.
Well, that was last week when you're seeing this, but we just picked it up today.
We have it. We have it.
We have it in our grimy little fingers, not at the current moment, but we got it. We got it in the box upstairs. Definitely going to get into that. Other than that, we got a new episode of Titans coming out tonight because we're shooting this on a Thursday.
Yep.
So a new episode of Titans coming out. I'm still rolling from the Wakanda Forever a little bit. I thought it was such a good movie. I have seen some mixed reviews. People thought it was a little slow, or it was just kind of like a Black Panther 1.5. But everybody I've talked to and everybody I've seen has said it looks beautiful, like it's a great movie, and just a little slow for some people.
I think it was just mainly the circumstances that is everything under, but I feel like we needed that. Some people feel like they didn't need that, and they should have just recasted. Yeah, is what we're kind of gathering from.
Yeah,
from
or
folks.
kind of just let it settle down for a little bit, and then get us to come back for a different Black Panther, or have them show up somewhere else as maybe a recast Black Panther, or these are opinions that people have, and everybody's opinion is has equal weight in my opinion. So,
but the main opinion that they all share is that they were satisfied with the outcome of the movie, even though it might have been a little slow for them.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, is that they definitely liked the movie.
Especially coming from we're talking about Marvel today, Marvel is kind of in a weird spot for a lot of people, with some of the things coming off of some things that they're not interested in, or some people just aren't interested in a lot of the movies for the last 5 years, you know what I mean? So,
and sadly, I feel like part of me falls into that kind of category.
Yeah. I'm kind of more in the category of I'm still here for you, Marvel. Let's have a few less fumbles.
Yeah.
I've said it a million times. It's like I'm always ready to see the next thing. I want the next thing. What's the next movie? What's the next, you know what I mean? Yeah. What's the next show? Where's the next big thing? Where's the next Avengers movie? But even saying that, I'd almost rather them slow down a little bit, regroup if they need to. Let's get some really good movies going into some big titles, Secret Wars, Secret Invasion. Is it Secret Invasion? Or
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
They got quite a few different ones. Fantastic Four, stuff like that coming out. They're going to be starting that. And I don't know.
But I just want to see them not fumble Fantastic Four just to get to the end zone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When you rush into the end zone, that's where you make mistakes. Whereas if you're all right, there's 3 quarters left of the game. We're only down by 7. Let's take our time. Let's move the ball.
Right, exactly.
Random sports analogies from people. I don't watch a lot of sports, even though I'm wearing a jersey.
A hockey jersey?
Yeah, I don't even watch hockey. There's a whole story behind this. Right. Maybe we'll spotlight it one of these days and tell you the whole story. But yeah, it's just there's a whole field in front of us. Let's move the ball. Let's make sure we keep it in our hands. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Play the cards smart.
Otherwise, we fumbled last time we had the ball. Let's throw a Hail Mary and see what happens. Oh, DC caught the ball. Yeah. Here they go. They're running all over us. Yeah. Not that I think DC is running all over them, but right now where we stand right now, they're moving the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There was a turnover.
Yeah, they're making big plays.
And DC's moving the ball.
They're ready to intercept it any day.
So starting on our first topic, I think, is there anything else that came out this week that you want to talk about? I mean, we're still coming from
nothing that
Deadly Duo.
Exactly. Nothing that we're
waiting
spotlighted.
For the next one. I watched a lot of Ninja Turtles this week, and I forgot how much I like Ninja Turtles. So
might start seeing some more of that stuff.
Yeah, I know. On the channel. I had some toys when I was younger that I wish I had now, and I had a friend. I mean, he's still my friend, but we don't talk as much now. But he was really into Ninja Turtles. I'll have to touch base with him again and see if he's still into Ninja Turtles. He had like saved some turtles from the river. I grew up in the country, like right next to a river. So he saved some turtles from the river and named them all the Ninja Turtles names.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, moving into, your other podcast shouted us out. They said that Marvel has a problem right now. I think his exact words are close to his exact words were Marvel has a problem right now. Well, one of many.
Right. Yeah.
But it's villains. And I don't disagree with him. I think when we did the big villain draft and the big draft roll off, I had even said, like, in my opinion, for a long time, it's been Marvel for heroes, DC for villains. And obviously you have like people in the opposite camp that stand out, like obviously Batman is a huge hero for DC, Superman, so on and so forth. But you do have some big villains in Marvel too. And I think he had even said at the end of that, he was talking about Thanos, and Thanos is a huge Marvel villain.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've done a little bit of research. I feel like I'm more the research guy and you're more like the let's see where my knowledge gets me. Right, so I kind of want to see where you stand on this before I kind of dive into, because I've been thinking about this for a week. They shouted us out. I think it was a week or two ago, but we had the Wakanda Forever last week, so we didn't want to touch base on it then and take away from our Wakanda Forever podcast. But let's see where you stand on Marvel villains versus DC villains, and why do you think there is that separation?
Well, one of the things that they ended up saying, so I am a huge DC fan. Yeah. I feel like this is the millionth time I've said it, and I'm going to say it a million more. I'm a huge DC fan, so my favorite just lies with DC from the beginning. I do think that they have kind of a problem with their villains to where it's almost a one and done thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of, or maybe it might be a group of movies or one or two movies kind of have the same villain, but then that's kind of it. I think they have the potential with some of their villains to make some cool movies, but they're also having issues with those villains such as like Carnage and Venom. I think that they can make some really, really, really great movies. You've been breaking down The King in Black. But I guess it's just a licensing issue now with Venom and Carnage, that not being able to get them from Sony, from, and the rights and things like that to make the film or to even throw them in. I think that we're going to start getting that, because I'm like, how are they going to do Secret Wars without even touching, the black suit? Because that's the first time we saw it. There's no way that they're not going to. So I feel like they have something in their batter's box ready to go. Yeah. But it's just a matter of how they execute it. And that's where they fail. Mm-hmm. I also think that it's a big theory with, I think a lot of it starts with Stan Lee and the way that he used to write these heroes from back in the day. Right. Yeah. You got to think about it as a lot of these heroes came out in the 40s, 50s, stuff that Stan was writing when he was in college, or just after college. And he was making these books with Jack Kirby because he used to do a lot of Marvel stuff. And then he went over to DC and made even more cooler stuff. But Stan's thing was always the hero comes out on top, regardless. The villain will die. He wanted superheroes. He didn't want them to lose. And if they did lose, it was for a moment, and it wasn't, they lost the battle, but the heroes are going to win the war.
Yeah, it's like a comeback story just to kind of
every time
make you re-fall in love with that hero.
The underdog story.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of wrestling too. Well, I haven't been watching as much, but I'm into wrestling. So like the baby face and the heel thing is like the people you're supposed to like and the people you're not supposed to like. These are the bad guys. These are the good guys. And they do it all the time. And it's like, all right, the good guy wins. You get a huge applause for the good guy. But then along the way, the bad guy's doing shady stuff. He's sneaking in weapons, brass knuckles, doing low blows, doing cheap shots. And then the hero's down and you're like, come on.
You want to root for him. Yeah.
And then at the next big pay-per-view, all of that comes to a head and the hero is standing on top with his arm raised and you're like, yes, the hero's back. Yeah. And I feel like that's the same kind of mentality. I mean, I feel like a lot of that comes from like the superhero, supervillain kind of mindset, Mm-hmm. You have the good guy that you want to like, you love him, you want him to win, but then the bad guy's doing the shady stuff and then you're like, screw you, villain, you're shady. The hero should win. And then finally at the end of the comic book, the hero wins and you're like, yes, it's all resolved. It's, and you saw that with King in Black. Null was going crazy. He was beating everybody. He's taking everybody out. And then the big turn at the end happens and you get the heroes winning at the end. And, I did break that down. So book breakdowns 1 through 5, I think 5 comes out this week. So if you don't have your hands on King in Black and you want to kind of see what it's about, definitely check that out. But yeah, it's Stanley's hero wins mentality.
That's their like theory behind it. Like that's if there was a mathematical equation to writing a Marvel comic, that's what it is. And they translate that in the movies every time, and I feel like that's where that hole is created with those villains. The hero's just going to win. Mm-hmm. You almost kind of know that, we lost Tony Stark, but for how long,
Yeah. Or, we got Ironheart now. So
exactly. We're going to get the AI maybe.
And Tony Stark is her AI. So then we get Tony Stark back again, and Tony Stark ends up winning and taking his, not mini-me, but like protege. Is protege the right word?
Yeah.
So Tony Stark's gone, but here he is taking his protege to the top of the pyramid again. Yeah.
Or even doing some more Iron Spider stuff.
Yeah.
Him being the AI and being in both of them. You know what I'm saying? And just that connection. So it's always the heroes kind of win. And I feel like that's where DC prevails, is because they're not afraid to kill their heroes off, because they'll bring them back. You know, they have their theories on how to bring them back in multiverses and
the
stuff
Lazarus
like that.
pit.
Exactly. The
Lazarus. I don't know if I said that. Whatever.
I think that's what it is. Not, but
words hard.
Right. But they're not afraid to show that their heroes can lose, will lose, and, I guess you can say they kind of prevail every time, but they need to keep the story going. You don't want your favorite hero dead. Like if they kill Batman now and just never print Batman again, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Oh yeah.
They're never going to sell another comic,
right.
And I'm not saying that, but
I think that goes back to one of the points they were making on your other podcast is like they were saying like you want the hero and the villain to almost be on equal footing. Like you want to believe, okay, this is on an ongoing story. I believe that the Batman could beat the Joker in this one. I believe the Joker could beat the Batman in this one. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I got from what they were saying. And that adds that kind of mystery. Like
who's going to win?
Is this comic going to end up with Batman losing, or is it going to end up with the Joker losing? Mm-hmm. Is Batman going to win in the end? We don't really know. Now we have the team up.
Which is insane.
Which I think takes me to one of my points for Marvel. Marvel, I was thinking about this during Wakanda Forever because Namor is the villain of that movie pretty much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But then you look at other books and Namor's the hero. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how many times did we see, when Thor came, there people had to go and like protect people from Thor.
Yeah.
Hulk went crazy. We had to go fight Hulk. How many other situations are there where like the heroes just are fighting the heroes? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like It's not.
It's happened with Iron Man too. The military went after Iron Man because they thought he was a bad guy.
So it's not only like they're not letting the villains win, or you're not creating that push-pull dynamic as much because you're always having the heroes win, but then half of your villain stories are just the heroes having like a bad day or bad, Hulk went crazy. Usually Hulk's a hero, but he's crazy today. So now we have a whole 3-book series on the heroes fighting Hulk, and we don't even have a villain because the other hero is the villain of this story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, I feel like we see that so much in Marvel, even Venom. Venom is, some people say he's a bad guy, but then if you look at the comics, like King in Black, Venom saved the whole day. Venom saved the whole story. He saved the whole planet. So then you get into like,
but now he's a ruler,
right? Yeah, is Venom a good guy or is he a bad guy? Because it depends who you ask. I feel like, and what they've seen, what they've took. I don't know the word. Whatever. I don't know a lot of words. What they've consumed. That's what I was trying to say. So what movies have you seen? What comics have you consumed? And vice versa. So depending on what you know about that universe, like you might say Venom is a bad guy, or you might say he's a hero. If King in Black is the only Marvel thing you've ever read, Marvel's a hero all day. You know what I mean? Where if you see some of the earlier symbiote stuff, you might say he's a bad guy because he's out here killing people, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many situations where,
like right now we're
the hero is the bad guy.
Yeah, or like exactly, like Carnage in Hell.
Yeah,
he's kind of taken over, but they're kind of portraying like you're almost on Carnage's side, like as he's going, he's going and taking over Hell, and it's kind of cool. But that's a whole different side of, but it puts you on that almost on his side.
So now what I thought was the number one issue, aside from like half of your villains being also your heroes, is I don't think the movies are 100% the problem for this, I think. You know what I mean? Because like we've had Marvel villains, and Marvel villains, you just might forget that they're Marvel villains. So like X-Men is Marvel. How many people know Magneto, Mystique, all these, all the bad mutants? Fantastic Four is Marvel. So you got Doctor Doom. Who doesn't know who Doctor Doom is? If you know anything about comics at all, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or movies or anything. You've seen Doctor Doom, or I already talked about X-Men. So like, I feel like that's one really strong suit that DC has going for them, other than Superman has kind of his own villains, you know what I mean? For the most part. But then you get into like the Bat family. So you have people like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, Robin, other Robin.
Exactly.
but a lot of times they're sharing a lot of these villains. You know what I mean? How many?
That's Batman. Batman has like the coolest like rogues gallery ever. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, we also look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man has an awesome rogues villain.
Them too. Those are them too.
Right.
Have those villains that you can't really, other than those guys' villains.
You're right.
Like, who else is gonna hit?
But I'm also saying like, okay, so Spider-Man goes and fights with the Avengers, and they have these other villains that they're fighting, and then he goes back and fights his own villains. You know what I mean? Whereas like, you can have Nightwing fighting the Joker, and then he goes to the Bat family and he fights Scarecrow, and then Batman goes out on his own thing and he fights Two-Face, and then they all come together and they're fighting Joker, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy. You know what I mean? You get this huge. I almost feel like when you look at Batman and the Bat family, even Superman will come and help with Joker once in a while, or so on and so forth. So you're like getting this big universe where you have this big group of villains who also work together sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And then you have this group of heroes, and you're just constantly seeing them clash. They clash over and over and over. Whereas like where we're seeing in Marvel, especially with these movies, it's like, okay, here's an Iron Man movie. who's his villain for this movie? All right, we did that villain. Who can we do next? Like, that villain's gone now. Like, what's the next villain? Other than Thanos, which earlier we talked about, Thanos is a huge villain in Marvel, and a lot of people know him at this point. But we saw a huge arc, and everybody was working towards Thanos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the other thing that you had said was that they kind of force-fed us the Avengers and Thanos so much, and that's why I feel like Thanos is such a big character, that we were force-fed Thanos and force-fed Avengers for the longest time.
Yeah, and that goes back to, like, there's been X-Men movies, but they've kind of not been promoted as well as Avengers or done as well as Avengers. It's almost like the X-Men movies were a little bit of an afterthought, and we're kind of getting away from, like, other than Dark Phoenix, which kind of crashed and burned a little bit.
Yeah.
We haven't seen too many X-Men movies. You know, we haven't seen the big staples, like even First Class and on. Those weren't as big of a deal as, like,
Logan,
the origin of Wolverine and before that. You know what I mean? Because we got those, was it early 2000s or late 90s? The big ones with Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen. You know, so we saw those, and during that time, you'd be like, oh yeah, Juggernaut, you know, Mystique, Magneto. You know, we think about all those, but now that it's like Avengers over and over and over, and they're only doing one villain and then disposing of him, you know, you're not thinking of these villains. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, to one of the other points that they made, and I totally agree with, is like they made Joker a character. You see Joker, you know Joker. You see Two-Face, you know Two-Face.
Yeah.
But, like, you could watch a trailer for the new Avengers movie, and they could have 3 villains that aren't Thanos, and you're like, who is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you hear it.
Unless it's dead accurate to, like, Juggernaut.
I mean, even then, like, the casual viewer that isn't in the comic books. You know, if you were born, because we're realistically people born since 95, like you were, you know, you know the comics and stuff, but if you hadn't seen, like, the early X-Men movies, you hadn't gone back to see, like, the early Batman movies, you would still know Joker now.
Oh yeah.
But who would be, who's Apocalypse, who's Juggernaut, who's, you know, like, and once again in Marvel, the later X-Men movie, like First Class and so on, even Dark Phoenix, Mystique is with Professor Xavier trying to save people.
Yeah.
You know, Magneto very early on left Professor X to do his own thing, which, if you know X-Men, you know what Magneto's doing. But, like, even then, he has moments of, like, I'm doing this for the greater good of mutants. So, like, you kind of get attached to that idea.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's, like, a huge problem with making Marvel heroes memorable. You know what I mean? Because, like, you can see Green Goblin, you know Green Goblin. Yeah. You can see Doc Ock, you know who he is. But we're not getting, like, huge movies with them and anymore, you know.
Yeah, at least since
like,
then.
Like the Tobey Maguires and stuff, like, we've seen that happen then. But, like, in the actual MCU, where other than, like, the one where they brought all the villains from all the different universes, we kind of saw them there. But, like, we didn't really see them shine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They put
Just the one movie.
Doctor Strange locked him up in a thing, and then at the end there was a big fight because they got out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, like, even with, like, DC's villains, I feel like they're getting more, like, one shots in comics. They're getting, like, we get whole Joker series.
I mean, we have Punchline now. Punchline is a completely new character as of 2018, 2017, and they're writing her own book. Right. They all have their own story arcs now, at least their own lines and everything else, like Harley Quinn. Mm-hmm. You know, that didn't show up until Joker in the 90s, and then they wrote her own series.
Right. And now everybody knows who Harley Quinn is because they made that character like a spotlight, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We get Harley Quinn books, we get Harley Quinn TV shows, we get Harley Quinn and
you're a fan of the villain.
In movies, yeah. And it's, you know, it's somebody, I think this is another point that they made, it's somebody who's relatable. You know what I mean? it's like, I think DC has this going for them in general, just because like Batman, Nightwing, Red Hood, Robin, going back to all those heroes, like you could make some machines and you could do it yourself. It would take a lot more than just that. You know, you'd have to put some work and effort and time and a lot of money into it.
Be kind of genius to do it. Right. Yeah.
But like realistically, they're just people with gadgets and a bunch of training. They can fight, and you know, the Lazarus pit helps because if they die, they can come back to life. But you know, and then on the other side, you get, you know, Joker, you get Mr. Freeze, you get Scarecrow. You know, Poison Ivy has her own superpower, but Scarecrow's thing, he made himself. He made that gas himself. Mr. Freeze was a scientist, and he ended up doing that to himself.
Yeah, he needed he needed to create his own suit to survive and run it off diamonds, so that made him evil because he's trying to save his wife Nora. That makes it so relatable. Right. Like you were saying, like I think we discussed it last week, and you were like, you're going to go to some crazy lengths to protect the people.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You know, and that's what's involved behind Freeze, is that he's in love with his wife and he's just trying to save his wife, and he's going to do anything that is to make it possible. Yeah. And because he has to steal those diamonds because he can't afford it, you know what I'm saying? That makes him a bad guy, but he's sitting there trying to do a wonderful thing.
And then on top of that, you know, you do have people. I'm gonna forget the name now. Clayface.
You have some weird ones.
Yeah, you do have like him who can shapeshift. You have Superman who is Superman.
Yeah,
you know, you do have these, but like, I would almost argue that I'm less connected to those characters because of that. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, you get the rogues gallery of Batman, and you get all these people interacting with them, you know, and it's just, I feel like there's a million reasons why Marvel's villains have issues, but I think number one is movies. It's the movies that we've seen. It's the things that we've consumed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And, you know, cause I just read Damage Control 4, which was a whole villains issue. So you start to see Doctor Doom. You see Loki, which Loki is another one. Like, we just had a Loki show, and you almost like felt bad for Loki, and then you forget that he's a villain. You know what I mean? But then I'm sorry. And then you get the Wrecking Crew, which, like, I didn't even know who the Wrecking Crew was if it wasn't for She-Hulk completely ruining their integration into the MCU. I wouldn't have even known who the Wrecking Crew was. And now you get like 3 pages in this new comic all about the Wrecking Crew, you know, and where is MCU's good portrayal of that? Because in Damage Control, they're like, the Wrecking Crew has defeated everybody from the Avengers, Young Avengers, Pet Avengers, this group, that group, this group, that group. And it's 4 guys who ended up with Asgardian like tools, and they just go destroy everything. You know what I mean? But like, where, like, if they've beat all these people, if they're this crazy, why haven't we seen it? Okay, we got it in She-Hulk, but you made one of the members of the Wrecking Crew go to like a day spa, and then like the only other time you saw them, it was before they got their weapons and they tried to beat up She-Hulk in an alley and they got destroyed. You know what I mean? So unless they just kind of wanted to like tickle everybody with Wrecking Crew, and then they're going to bring them in for like Secret Invasion, Secret Wars, whatever else. But like, if that's what we see of the Wrecking Crew and we don't see him again, like, you completely destroyed this whole team.
It could have been good.
Right.
It could have been cool. You could have had a way different kind of movie. I think it comes back down to the formula and what they've seen as far 100%. As it being successful with the underdog story, and they're afraid to change it.
Yeah.
I feel that they're afraid to change it because there is Deadpool kills Marvel Universe and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's see that. You know, after like once Secret Wars and all that stuff is done, it feels like they've done every major hitting comic. You know what I'm saying? Every major hitting hero at that point gave them their origin story. Like, what are we going to see after that? Like
King in Black.
I hope. I hope something cool. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get some cool Wrecking Crew stuff. Let's get the King in Black. Let's get Carnage in Hell. You know, I want to see some Carnage.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thing. I want to see some Carnage. Get into some Carnage stuff. That'd be cool. But
I think that goes back to like the thing that you were talking about earlier about like royalties and who owns which character, you know, because we have the Tom Hardy Venom right now. Yeah. We got the Woody Harrelson Carnage. You know what I mean? But as far as actually integrating that into the MCU, unless they completely change a timeline to do it, none of it makes sense. You know what I mean? So now we're going to have to go into another Venom origin. We're going to have to go into another, this is who Venom is. This is the symbiotes. This is what's happening. You know what I mean?
I mean, we did get that in Spider-Man 3 with Tobey.
But that's not MCU either. You know what I mean?
Is it not now? Because like that's where I'm like, that's where I get drawn is because like, is that MCU? Because you have Tobey back. Tobey is back in the MCU. So that happened in multiverse.
Is Tobey back or did they make a meme in a movie? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not saying that Tobey's back, right, but that's the story. That's, you know, not saying that that's the first time because that's not accurate to the first time that we saw the symbiote.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
You know, Secret Wars is the first time we saw the symbiote.
But that's my biggest thing. Are you gonna invest all this time to get into Secret Wars and not tell that story, right? At least close.
I feel like they're gonna just redo it.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's.
But then the Tom Hardy stuff would be irrelevant again. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Is that I feel like that's what they're gonna do. And realistically, if they're smart, they could do it, and they could rewrite it and do it the right way.
Yeah.
But are they going to? And can they? Because of Sony.
Yeah, that's where we get into the ownership and all that stuff. You know, Kingpin. You know, Kingpin is a huge. I said in a different episode that I grew up with Kingpin as a Spider-Man villain, but he's a Daredevil villain. But now there's all these issues with who owns and can use Kingpin in this aspect and that aspect, and then, you know, we get into all that stuff. So, you know, are we going to see Kingpin? Are we going to be able to see Kingpin? Because Kingpin is like a huge thing for me. Like, I grew up with him in the Spider-Man animated series.
Yeah, you're excited.
Yeah, you get him in the big white suit and you put him in something. You know what I mean? But then you got the ownership issues, and you know that might be. I feel like ownership issues and the Marvel equation is just detrimental to their villains. You know what I mean? I think that causes a huge tear. And then going back to like, who's a villain? You know what I mean? Who's a villain and who's a bad guy other than like this handful of villains who never went good, or this handful of heroes that never went bad? You just have that huge gray line shooting right down the middle of like, there's a whole series about this hero being the villain. There's a whole movie about this hero being the villain. There's a whole thing about this villain helping this, you know, and then you get attached to them. So that creates that rip for you, that you're not 100% on this villain. You're not 100% on that hero. And going back to just shoving it down our throats, it's like, okay, I've seen, like, I'm almost in the boat of like, I've seen enough Iron Man. I don't need to see Iron Man for
I don't need another Iron Man movie.
I don't need to see somebody like that for a couple more years, or until like we get a big story. You know, like the Ironheart thing is a little bit different because it's not Iron Man. He's just an AI. He's helping her out. But, you know, it's just like you said, I don't need another Iron Man movie. I don't need another Captain America movie. I don't
need another Thor movie.
I don't either. But if they had Thor in a different series, you know, where you actually get to see a big villain, you know, and then Thor shows up to help, you know, that's super cool. You know what I mean? Even going back to the last Thor movie, Hercules was, I think, an ending credit scene. Was the ending credit scene or last scene of the movie? They revealed Hercules.
Yeah.
And Zeus was basically sending Hercules to go fight Thor. But Hercules is a hero, you know what I mean? In other storylines and other timelines. in Damage Control 4, Hercules and She-Hulk were the ones to go fight the villains and stuff. And like, you know what I mean? So it goes back to that same, like, is this a hero or is this a villain? Even Deadpool, you know what I mean? He's an anti-hero, but you know, he does so many things that make you think he's a bad guy, but then he goes and helps the X-Men. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like so many, he kills the entire Marvel universe, but then goes and, you know, saves the kid's life. Mm-hmm. So who's a bad guy?
Right.
Whereas like, even with Joker doing the Deadly Duo now, the way we've only had one issue, so this could be completely destroyed down the line. But in the first issue, how they introduced that, it's like the Joker is still 100% the Joker. Batman is still 100% Batman. They just happen to have to align their views on the same thing for a little bit, and you are kind of waiting for Joker to turn on Batman at any moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Once he has Harley, it's like game over.
Yeah, Batman needs to find Gordon, and Joker needs to find Harley.
And they've both been taken by the same group.
But other than that, it almost kind of seems like all bets are off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not like Namor in this Wakanda Forever, completely villain most of the movie, but then like there's parts of it that make you love Namor too, like telling his story, and at the end where he creates peace between, you know, them and Wakanda, and then but then he kind of makes like a keep your enemies close kind of comment, you know what I mean? And then going back to King in Black, he's a hero that comes to save the day. In other series, like he's there to save the day. Going back to what you said, I found the assassin, but I couldn't find anybody talking about the assassin, spoiler or whatever, in Wakanda Forever. Nobody else said anything about it.
It was literally right in the beginning.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I couldn't find anybody else talking about it because I was trying to put a picture in the podcast last week. But even Namor, he's a hero in a lot of those stories. He's fighting a villain that's like trying to take him down. So, yeah, I feel like at this point I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but I feel like I feel like we come up with a new issue and it just always comes back to how they're treating their heroes, how they're treating their villains, how Joker is kind of always Joker. And, you know, Batman is always Batman. You have that dead set, like, this is a hero, this is a villain kind of thing. Other than that, I mean, you do have, like, your anti-hero, kind of like Catwoman. Like, Catwoman is out there kind of doing her thing, helping both sides when it's convenient for her. But, like, they also make that very apparent. Like, Catwoman is not a hero. Catwoman is not a villain. Catwoman is Catwoman, and she does whatever Catwoman wants.
Exactly.
You know, kind of thing.
She's a cat. You know, that's what it's the attitude that a cat has. You know what I'm saying? They can love you 1 second, and then they're gonna scratch your face off the next. And that's what I like. I think that's cool about Catwoman. You know, the other thing with DC is that they don't have the licensing issues that Marvel has, fortunately, so they can do what they want with their villains. They've been very in control of their whole things from the get-go, you know, so they're not having these Sony making Carnage and Venom. I think what's happening with that is that they don't want that story, but I feel like Sony wants it to be in part of the MCU, so they're not going to sign the rights over unless they make that timeline and that story part of the MCU, so then they can throw it up on Disney and get the views and get the money from it. And that's what they want, including Spider-Man 2 and 3, because those are all on Netflix. That is not part... Spider-Man, you know, even with the first one being with the Green Goblin and being part of the MCU now, it's not on Disney.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a Sony movie, and I feel like that's what they want, is they want it on Disney with the rest of them, and Marvel doesn't want that because they don't want to take the story, which, congrats on that, but that's just keeping us farther away from, you know...
certain other elements that we want to see.
It's like both sides are keeping it from us, you know, which you can't blame one or the other on that situation, because you see the money that could be made from Sony, and you see their point of view where they can get gypped out if they don't take that story. You know what I'm saying? Like if they sign over the rights and they don't take that story and it's not part of the MCU, it's game over. You know what I'm saying? The MCU is going to take over with rewriting a movie, Secret Wars, and all that stuff, and having the origin and Venom and Carnage all in this and doing it essentially the right way.
I think it's important, too, to remember that Marvel and Marvel Studios are completely separate. So like the Marvel comics, Marvel, all that stuff is completely separate from Marvel Studios.
They have to buy the rights, and Marvel Comics is selling the rights to these characters.
Because Marvel Studios basically kind of got together on a hope and a prayer with Iron Man 1, tried to get a big actor in there, and then they were like, let's see where this goes. And this is where it ended up. You know what I mean? So they didn't start this journey with a bunch of rights. They didn't start this journey with a bunch of money. They just kind of kept kept pushing. That's why there's only a few movies in the first couple of years. You know what I mean? Because now they have this huge machine behind them, and now they're just throwing everything out they can. And they're like, we need these rights. We'll figure it out later. We'll add it later. You know, and that's what it seems like. So like remembering like Marvel Comics can still put out any Spider-Man they want.
Oh yeah.
Where like Marvel Studios doesn't have the movie rights, you know, so that's where that comes in.
Or those rights were sold years ago with the first batch that Sony did, you know, because those still say Marvel on it. Those are still pretty much the same intro, like the one that we got with Chadwick, and everything was replaced. That was the first Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Intro. So it was Marvel selling the rights to Sony to make the movie. Marvel didn't have their own studios yet. Now that they did with Iron Man 1, that's where these issues come into play because, okay, you were working together, but now you don't want to work with us anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it's weird.
I don't even know. I think they just straight up bought the rights to certain characters and then they can use those. Yeah. Sony bought rights to whatever characters they wanted. Because I think they got offered Marvel for like a super low price, like $3 million or something.
Super low, $3 million.
Well, considering what this is what it is now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then, and they're like, we don't really want it all. We want Spider-Man. And then they gave them like something crazy lower for just Spider-Man. They're like, this is all we want, or something like that. I might be totally tearing this article apart, but the moral of it was like Sony had the ability to pay something super low for Marvel. They chose not to, but they did want some of the characters. They bought those characters, made some movies, and then Marvel blew up and they're like, no, we don't want you to have your characters back. Like, this is all we have to hold on to, kind of thing. You know, that's what it seems like. But yeah, like Marvel Studios just kind of started on a hope and a prayer. I think it was just like a team of guys, and they're like, I like comics. I want to see an Iron Man movie. Can we make this happen? Will it be bigger than one movie? We might completely go broke making this one movie and nobody will see it, and we'll see what happens, and we might live in debt the rest of our lives because we made one Iron Man movie. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, it worked. The Iron Man movie worked. Can we do, I don't remember what the second movie was, like Thor. Yeah. Can we do a Thor movie? Will people watch a Thor movie? Oh, can we do this? Can we start working towards Avengers? We're at Avengers. Yeah, stuff like that. So, you know,
it was a slow build up, and now that they're built up, it's fair. We're getting fed it fast.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to just like tripping over those royalties and those ownership issues, because like they didn't start with money. They didn't start buying a bunch of royalties and characters, and they
started in comics, and that's their thing, and that's what it felt like for the first 50 years of it. They didn't want to stray away from.
That
was their thing.
I know talking to you about this is a hot take, but I don't know how many people agree or disagree with me. I would say that Sony, with the first 3 Spider-Man movies, did villains way better than heroes.
100%.
I didn't like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man at all. And I didn't, other than an animated Spider-Man, I didn't really have a live action Spider-Man to compare it to. It just seemed like super weird and corny to me. And then,
see, I was very young when I fell in love with it, so I feel like that's the difference.
I think it just like the whole like when he shot webs and like stopped the train. It's like, dude, you would have been ripped apart. Like, I don't care if you're Spider-Man or not, you know, stuff like that.
Or those webs would have ripped or something.
Yeah, something. You know? I think Corridor Crew did like if Spider-Man was rated R, and they did it where he does that, and then all of a sudden his like skin starts ripping off, and his arm goes flying off.
You showed me that,
and then all the everything breaks, and then he falls on the ground, and the train smashes him.
It's hilarious.
It's
if you guys
so
haven't
good.
checked it out, check
he
it
just
out.
also they just also did like if all the heroes got into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
You sent it to me. I'm like, yeah, this is Corridor Crew, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do some really cool stuff.
They started it with Miles, and then it was just, what is this? And it was just a million Spider-Men. It was cool. It was cool. I enjoyed it.
Wrap up of this. What do you think? Like, it just came. What do you think are like the 3 issues Marvel is having with heroes? Just to like conclude, so we stop coming back to them.
Right. Top 3 issues. Number 1 being licensing. They sold their soul to Sony back in the day. Obviously, licensing is one. Second is they're too stuck on the old formula, on Stan Lee's formula from the comics that the heroes always win. And not saying that that's wrong. I love Stan Lee, but it's an old school take on a hero, where DC gets more real. And third is one thing that we actually didn't even get to touch on yet is the way they look, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The CG on Thanos, you could have done something way cooler. You know what I'm saying? Like, Doomsday looked sick in Justice League. I think that looked sick. That looked awesome. Everything about Black Adam looked awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and that was almost nothing, you know, but I feel that they can make a scarier villain, if you get what I'm saying, or, you know, and I feel like the fear of the villain is what feeds you, you know, and feeds that like energy towards them. And Thanos didn't look very scary to me whatsoever. He just looked like Barney on steroids. Like, I'm not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's just this big purple dude in a thing of armor, and I'm like, cool. The Hulk, in my opinion, I feel like he could just rip you apart. But
I think that goes back to the being relatable thing. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of, like, even Poison Ivy, even though she has powers, she's very much just like a woman who's green. You know what I mean? And then, like, Joker is just very much a guy with bleached skin and a messed up face and going crazy. Like, you could see somebody walking in face paint and almost looking exactly like the Joker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he was doing the same things the Joker was doing, that would be terrifying. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you're in that room, you're just like on edge. You don't want to be in that room, you know, like with the Joker at all. And that's the things that play into, you know, when I look at it and I picture if I was there in the DC ones, I'm always like, if I was there, I'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
But in the Marvel ones, it's like, if I was there, I'd want to join in on the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, or I wish I had a suit of armor so then I can go in with Iron Man, you know, or something like that. Like, makes me want to fight those heroes, to where a DC villain, I'm you know, I'm scared of them because it's scary.
I think that is also like talking to like weaponry. You know what I mean? Like, DC is very heavy like martial arts. There are gadgets and there are
combat
things like that, but like, you see the action, you see people get hit, you see you know, you see Iron Man, he's like, all right, next villain. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it is. It's like, I mean, going back to heroes fighting each other, Civil War is one of my favorite Avengers movies, and that's a friggin' whole movie of them fighting each other.
Right.
But they're just like, it's just like, the whole movie, you almost see like inner turmoil between the team, and then all of a sudden the villain shows up and they're like, oh, we're a team. Let's take them down.
Yeah. Nothing else
right.
matters. Everything's happy again. You know. Why were we fighting again?
And then the next move, they're fighting again. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I think it should be done this way. No, I think it should be done this way. Well, let's go our separate ways. There's a villain. We're friends again. Fight him. Beat him. I still hate you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, now the next movie is them fighting each other for 3 hours.
It seems to be a little bit over.
Yeah.
I seem to be a little bit over it. Now, I'm completely the opposite way with Wakanda, but that's a whole nother thing to where Namor isn't necessarily
That's what I was just gonna
villain.
say.
You know what I'm saying? But that was one that I mean, in this story, he is more portrayed to be a villain, but that is not going to always be the case if they keep him in the movies.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
He's going to get his own movie. At least I hope.
He'll probably get a show and they'll drop the ball and
Don't give him a show. If anybody at Marvel can happen to be watching this, send it to him, tag him. I don't care. Don't make it a show. Make it a movie. Make it badass. I'm sick of this She-Hulk crap.
Hey, I'm excited for Ironheart. I hope they don't do the same thing with She-Hulk.
I'm very excited for all of these titles.
Yeah.
But how they execute it, that's on them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And if they're going to live up to the expectation.
I want to continue being excited.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, just here's my hand. Take me either disappointed or excited. Like, it's on you. Like, I said before, I go in kind of with like an open mind. I don't
try to.
You know, I don't have any expectations. I'm not even expecting your CG to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Thrill me. You know what I mean? Give me a good time. Cause like, I mean, that was going back to Black Adam again. There were things in that movie that really bothered me, you know, going back to timeline issues and character issues and this and that. But I liked the movie. You know what I mean?
See, I went in hyping it up so much, and then I walked out even more hyped than I walked in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if it was just because, I mean, it was that good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
well,
that's the first time that there's usually something that like, it still wasn't as good as I thought. With as hyped as I was very surprised that it met my expectation for Black Adam, because I was very afraid, because I was so hyped about it that I was gonna have to come and give it a bad review, because I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, and I was a little bit scared, but they succeeded with that one. And you know, I walked in the complete opposite way with Wakanda.
Yeah,
and left feeling the same way as Black Adam.
Yeah,
you know.
We'll see, because I haven't seen the first Shazam. Have you? You've seen the first Shazam, right?
I like it. I think it's all right. You know, but
I've heard a lot of people were like kind of like nah about it.
It's a meh kind of movie. I think they were trying to introduce a new hero. Yeah, they did a good job of it. But what is it? Is it freaking Batman? No,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Is it? I mean, I think this was their redo at that with Black Adam. Now they know how to do the character. You know what I'm saying? And now we're getting another Shazam.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Well, the DC, I think, is coming off a few really good movies. In whatever order you put them in, I feel like a lot of people were like, The Batman, The Joker, Black Adam were pretty good movies overall. And then we'll see what they do going forward, because now I feel like Shazam is a little bit of a challenge for them, because so many people were kind of like me about the first one. You know what I mean? So
I think it's a challenge, but I think it's going to go right back to Black Adam, and it's not going to be a Shazam movie. You know, we needed the first origin of Shazam. It's a kid that's a hero. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, we'll see.
It's a Spider-Man story, pretty much.
We'll see what it does, because I mean, now they got all the kids being Shazams, and it's kind of I feel like cool. it's targeted more towards a younger crowd.
I think it is a little bit, but I feel like they do that on purpose, but their movies grow with their audience. Yeah, you know, so yeah, they're gonna try to get the younger crowd in it, because you need that. You need to get the kids that, you know, that are just getting introduced to it. Like my kid, you know, my son's about to be 4 years old, and he's going to be introduced to that and seeing that. So it's important to get him on if they want them to be lifelong fans.
Well, I mean, that was an argument with Love and Thunder too, but I felt
like it was all right with Iron Man in Phase 1, and that was as much as it should have gotten.
I don't know. I like Ragnarok. I feel like you could have kind of floated a little bit closer to Ragnarok and still pitch to a younger crowd. You didn't need to go that far, I think, in my opinion. But like all my friends and, you know, the comments that I'm seeing online is like, my kids loved it, so I loved it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews, but they're all getting older now too. So like, I don't have that view.
I bet they think that Thor is hilarious, you know, and they probably like Ragnarok. My son is obsessed with it. He watches it.
I love Ragnarok.
He'll pick it out on Disney Plus on himself on his own iPad, and it's kind of impressive. And I'm like, why? I'm a little disappointed, but I'm like, you're 3. You know what I'm saying?
But Ragnarok, right?
Yeah.
Not Love and Thunder.
No. He watches both of them.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, you're 3, so I get it. You know what I'm saying? But
have better taste, 3-year-old.
He's also finding more DC now.
Right.
He's choosing Batman and stuff over Spider-Man now, which is kind of crazy because Spider-Man has been his thing. He's obsessed with it. He still is, but now he's doing the same thing with Batman.
Well, I think animated shows, DC blows Marvel out the water.
Yeah, they just don't focus on kids. I mean, they do with some of their shows, like maybe Batman Beyond, some of the Cartoon Network stuff, but like you watch The Killing Joke, that's rated R. You watch Under the Red Hood, I'm pretty sure that's rated R.
Yeah.
There's
But
a
I'm
lot
saying
of great
even
ones.
like the ones that I grew up with they weren't as gory and dark as these ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like they have other Batman animated series on HBO, but they're just good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know, I'm obviously said a million times, I'm drawn to more cartoons and stuff too. But like even with the cartoons, DC is just doing it. I said at the end of my King in Black breakdown, I was like, I'd almost rather see this as an animated movie.
Yeah.
Give me all this in animated, because like if you pick a style and you rock that style in an animated movie, I don't need to worry if Null looks good in CG. You know?
Right.
I don't, as Guardian Doctor Strange is in that. I don't need to see you Benedict Cumberbatch and try to make him as Guardian. And like, I almost would rather just see an animated movie at this point, because I like the book so much. There's so much happening, and I don't want to be like taken out by like your kind of flaws. Like, just give me an animated movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. I like the animated movies a lot. They're but you know, they're just way different than the Marvel stuff. Marvel animated stuff is not. I mean, since the '90s hasn't really been focused on anybody younger than or older than 10.
I talked about like Rising last week, which is it's more of a kid's show almost, but you know, it's something that I can sit and watch.
It's on that line.
Whereas like, what is it, like Spidey and Friends? Like, I turned that on for 5 minutes. I was like, I'm not watching this. You know what I mean?
My 3-year-old loves it. Yeah. You know,
exactly.
They tell the stories from comics in 5 minutes. You know,
it's
they're little
great.
clips.
It's great
cool.
for that.
You know, but
like I feel like DC kind of hits both audiences out of the park. You know what I mean? And I don't think Marvel, like you said, is kind of doing like a show for adults. You know what I mean? Like Harley Quinn, the animated series.
That is not for kids. Not at all. You know.
No, we just finally finished it. But
it's good.
like give me like a cool Wrecking Crew cartoon.
That'd be dope.
Tell that whole story in a cartoon and just have them smashing everything, and you know, and then do however you want to bring them into Secret Wars or whatever, you know.
They did the Suicide Squad cartoon, and I thought that was awesome.
There's been a lot of Suicide Squad cartoons. Yeah, they're really
those
good.
Are better than the movies, you know.
And they're not.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love those movies, but those
the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. They took it a little. It was a little weird for me, especially when I was first watching. I like them a lot more now, but it almost seemed like with the Suicide Squad movies that they were trying to do a little bit more of the Marvel thing.
Yeah.
You know, but now they're pulling back and pulling out of that and being like, that's not our thing. You know, they have their thing. James Gunn is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's crushing it. But with those movies, there was just a few things in there that I was just like, you know, not that I thought they were great movies, but it wasn't as dark as I thought that they would have been, to be honest.
I love the second one.
The second one's
don't
the cool
like
one.
the first one. I don't hate the first one. I just once I honestly, like, everybody I talked to hated the first one so much, and then when I finally watched them, like, why do people hate that? You know, like, it's not the best movie, but
that's
like,
my
I
opinion
wouldn't hate
on
it.
too, yeah.
And then the second one came out. I'm like, yeah, I hate the first one. No, I don't hate it, but but then going back to like how we started the episode, the main topic of the episode, Suicide Squad, a huge series for all of the villains. What is the equivalent to that in Marvel? How do you get introduced to those in Marvel?
They don't. That's the one thing that Marvel does versus every once in a while they'll do a team up. Like they have a Doctor Doom team up, but they don't have that many villain team ups. They do, but not.
But I'm saying you're not getting like a big series. Like where's the big Doc Ock series?
In Spider-Man.
But I mean, we're not getting like, this is what Doc Ock is doing.
Oh yeah, we're not getting a Dr. Octopus like book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like we got Harley Quinn books. We got Two-Face books. We got Catwoman
We're
books.
starting to get Gold Goblin.
Yeah, but he's a hero.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like we're starting to get some of these things.
I haven't read the first issue of Gold Goblin. It just came out this week. If you're listening to this, it was last week. But they kind of set it up to where Osborn built this Gold Goblin suit to help Spider-Man and be a hero. But then unlike the second book, like the tagline is something like, is hero really something that he wants to do? You know what I mean? So then it's that back and forth again. So is he a hero or is he a villain? I don't really know. He looks cool as hell.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he looks really sick.
You know, so back to all of it. I think the popularity of the Marvel movies and forgetting like some of your classic villains are Marvel villains, ownership issues, personalities, the look you said, I totally agree with. Especially, I mean, you don't have to make a villain look cool if you're just going to beat him in 30 minutes and then never see him again. You know what I mean? You don't need to.
I mean, like, Thanos was cool, but
I'm talking more like Whiplash. You know? Whiplash from like Iron Man 2 or 3 or whatever it was.
Yeah. I mean, he was dope, but
I mean, was he though?
He could have been way cooler.
He was just a dude in an S&M suit. Throwing whips around. He was a dude in an S&M suit throwing whips around.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe I know that actor is problematic too and hard to work with. I've heard. Right. But maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
Who knows?
I agree. Hero does have Marvel problems. Marvel has villain problems is what I tried to say. Totally agree. I don't think Marvel has villain problems. I think Marvel movies have movies have villain problems, and that's what we're force-fed right now. I'm hoping that maybe moving into Secret Wars, because Secret Wars is supposed to be a bunch of villains versus a bunch of heroes.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
But if we don't like if we're not attached to any of the villains going into that, how are they gonna make? I mean, we know the hero.
They're gonna focus mainly on but I think what they should do is focus mainly on the black suit. But can they do it? Will they do it? Should they do it? I mean, they have to, but like.
I mean, we'll see.
How are they going to do it? They're going to just have to pay money to Sony. Like, they might as well, because the money, whatever needs to be figured out between both of them, they just need to sit down, shut up, and figure it out, because it's both a lot of money that can be made for both sides.
Yeah. But I mean, just to do the movie, you have to have a huge group of villains just to put in the movie.
Yeah. But if you're not going to have the main villain that is, or Black Suit Spidey, they're not going to do Secret Wars without Black Suit. There is no way.
I'm just saying, like, you have to have these villains in the movie.
Yeah.
Where are those villains? We have all these heroes. Where are the villains?
They're going to pop up in She-Hulk next season.
Yeah.
And one per episode, cameo every episode.
She-Hulk's just gonna look at the camera and she's gonna be like, blah 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 is a villain. And then you're never going to see him until Secret Wars.
I know. That's the thing that's going to make me so mad, because it's like, why even have the show? Why even have her as the show? Why not just make a YouTube channel and just say, we're going to do this and do this? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, She-Hulk, like I said, deserved more.
100%.
You know, like they could have had a really, really cool show. They could have had a really, really cool hero. They still have the potential to make her really, really cool, but
and her comics are coming out right now, and the covers look super cool to me.
Cool.
But I'm so bummed out on She-Hulk right now. I just don't even want to buy one.
Yeah, fire whatever director. Who was the director?
I don't know.
I don't even care.
I mean, Kevin Feige was behind it. He was behind everything, though. So, you know, Kevin. I think it'd be cool if they took Secret Wars and made it a 2-part, took their time with it, got us connected to a bunch of heroes, had Spider-Man in the first part, at the end of the first one, have that black suit come into play, and boom, credits, next movie, all about black suit Spider-Man. But if you don't have villains to put in that movie, you can't do anything with them.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think that pretty much has been it. So that's our response.
Yeah.
From Zach and
they talked about it. They don't do only comic books. They do kind of a mix of everything. Sounds like one of them did their own superhero stuff and jumped over a dryer and saved somebody's life. So if you want to see the story behind that, go check out their episode. I think it's called Heroes and Villains. It's your other podcast. You should give them a shout out. Say what's up, Zach. What's up, Trinkle. What's up, Jose. We appreciate you shouting us out. Anytime you guys want to do this, we should do it again. Definitely talk about some more stuff like this. And if, we'll probably have Zach on again. If one of the other two want to come on, we'll hang out. And I know one of them lives in like North Carolina or something. So,
yeah, one of them is pretty far away.
If you want to make the drive just to hang out with the dudes from Collective Comics, maybe we'll play some Magic or, we'll get into D&D or something.
Right. Or maybe we go out to North Carolina for no reason.
North Carolina, go on, raise up. I don't even know if that's where it is. It might not be there.
It might not. Could be
we
West
appreciate
Virginia.
y'all. Check out their podcast. And thanks for being on our podcast. If you want to hear more of our podcast, like, comment, and subscribe. Check it out everywhere you get music except for Apple and Google. We're working on those. Other than that, like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Patreon for more bonus content and material. Go to dubby.gg. Get 10% off your Jitterless Energy with code Collective Comics at checkout. Whatnot. Link in the bio for your free $10 credit when you sign up using that link. And this has been Collective Comics.
We'll see you guys.